anticipate that it's about to start. And you know that old line from the movies, a hush fell over the room? It actually happens. So thank you all for being here. You can make a little bit of noise throughout the morning. Please feel welcome to share your appreciation for our amazing panelists once they begin to speak. Please be aware that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. This place that we call the University of British Columbia was a traditional gathering place for Coast Salish peoples who use this coast to trade, to educate one another, to come together. It's been a place of learning and growth and family and community for millennia, and we are very blessed to be able to be here. We invite those of you who are listening from afar, wherever you are, to consider the First Peoples, the folks who came before you, and to consider the ways in which they lived and worked on the lands and territories that we now call home. My name is Catherine Gretzinger. I'm a professor in the School of Journalism, Writing, and Media. I am a very kind of a meek substitute for the wonderful Patrick Pennefather, who is supposed to be here moderating today's event, but I'll do my best to make you feel welcome and included. It's going to be a real presentation today. Before we go to podcasting, we're streaming live today on YouTube, and this is going to be available to you over time. So if you're not able to stay with us for the entire event, you're welcome to go back online, and the recording will be available to you. I'd like to begin today by welcoming Vincent Sonka up to the microphone. He is the Consulate General of France, based here in beautiful Vancouver, and without him, today's event would not be possible. Vincent. Any microphone.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Hello, everyone. So my name is Vincent Zonka. I'm the cultural attaché at the French Embassy based at the French Consulate here in Vancouver. I'm very happy to be with you all today for this morning of exchanges and showcase and at the end of this residency. So I'm very looking forward to listening to you and to all the questions which will be made this morning. It's also a pleasure to be in such a magnificent venue in UBC. And in such good company with also people from the Emerging Media Lab. I would like to thank at the end in particular. So today is an opportunity to discover the work of two multifaceted French artists to share and to discuss the fruitful links between musical creation and artificial intelligence. I'm delighted to be able to work with the French Embassy and local partners to develop various residency programs in Western Canada, covering innovative fields at the interface between research, technology, and contemporary arts, as for which we believe that Vancouver is one of the most vibrant and prominent places with a very active and stimulating community. This brand new residency, Artificial Muse, belongs indeed to a new program dedicated to developing artistic residencies between France and Canada. In this innovative field I mentioned, the residence West-West residencies. We have also other residencies as this one, and in UBC, for example, we are working with the Quantum Matter Institute for an art and quantum science residency. So a French artist will come in November to work at the QMI, and a BC artist will go to Paris in September to work in immersion in a lab, a quantum lab in Paris at Sorbonne Université, and with Quatre Paris, which is a very famous cultural institution in Paris. This year, we have decided to launch several projects and reflect on the challenges of artificial intelligence. I'm honored to be doing so with such high-quality partners as SFU, with Philippe Pasquier and his lab, and UBC, with the Emerging Media Lab, with whom we had already worked in April for an evening of creative thinking on the challenges of AI in contemporary artistic creation. We organized this event in April in the downtown campus with great speakers as Loretta Sarah-Todd, Steve Di Paola from SFU, Justine Aymar, a French artist, Patrick Pennefather from the EML, and Amber Fregi Jimenez. And I would like also to thank the EML and the speakers for that event. Quentin and Philippe are the very first residents of this creation program, creation residency dedicated to the synergies between musical creation and artificial intelligence, created with Philippe Pasquier and the Metal Creation Lab for Creative AI from SFU. It's then a lot of emotion, because it's the first residency, but also, especially since today is the penultimate day of this residency for them and for us, and an opportunity to wrap up this experience and to exchange on it. And I have to say that I'm impressed by their work during these last weeks, in particular the work of Philippe Pasquier. I was able to know more during this residency also on his team at SFU, but also of these two artists, Quentin, who works with from calligraphic and choreographic translations, I would say, collaborating then with AI. He will tell you more later. And Philippe, who works on a very special leg for pop creations. So, to not be long, I really would like to thank warmly Said, the UBC and the Imaging Media Lab, Catherine Gretzinger, Patrick Pennefather, even if he's not here today, unfortunately, Anne Lee, and all the team of the EML for welcoming us today. Of course, I would like to thank Philippe Pasquier, who made this impossible project possible, and his team at SFU, Paul, Archia, and all the other people from SFU, Chris Krupp from Future Proof Creatives, the dancer Kaya Shukin for the great support and collaboration. I would also like to thank my team at the embassy, particularly in Aura, and the artists for this amazing collaboration, which is just starting. And thank you all for being with us today. Have a nice event.
Thank you so much, Vincent, for those warm words of welcome. And we do appreciate all the work that the Consulate General has done, and Nora and Vincent, thank you for being with us today. This event is hosted by the Emerging Media Lab through the Emerging Media Community of Practice, otherwise known as the EMCoP at UBC. We love our acronyms around here. The Emerging Media Lab, as many of you will know, is an innovative space where faculty and students and staff from across the campus and across disciplines come together to collaborate with industry partners and the community to create new tools and techniques to use in education and beyond into industry as we work to create and understand media. Today's session is part of an ongoing series under the Emerging Media Community of Practice sessions. And this is the first time post-COVID that we've actually been in a room together. So it's very exciting to see so many of you, and we appreciate you making the effort to come and be with us. And still wear your masks when you're out in public, because we have to worry about things that are swirling around. So we really want you, as you're listening to these wonderful artists, and as they're talking about the ways in which they're thinking about creating art using technologies, to take these moments and take these ideas and knit them into your own thinking and doing. Part of the wonder of the Emerging Media Lab here at UBC is the joy of co-creating and finding ways to be inspired by each other and take those things and morph them into new things. So we really invite you to do that. We have three incredible artists to introduce you to today. So what I'm going to do is a brief biography of each artist. They'll talk about their work, and then we'll do a question and answer period. Those of you watching on YouTube, you're welcome to send along your questions. We'll speak those questions out loud, and then we'll have our panelists answer. So we're going to try to stay to time. We have about 90 minutes together today, so we'll keep an eye on the time. So we invite you to listen in, and please think about your questions, and we'll try to draw from those going forward. To begin, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Philippe Pasquier from the School of Interactive Arts and Technology at SFU, Simon Fraser University, right here in Vancouver. He's known for his work in the fields of artificial intelligence, computational creativity, and generative art. Philippe is recognized for his efforts in bridging the gap between scientific and artistic communities. He's often collaborating with artists and musicians and technologists to kind of and push at the boundaries of AI and assisted creativity. As the founder and director of Meta Creation Lab, he leads a research creation team which is focused on novel AI systems to create applications, particularly in music and in visual arts. And together, the lab has made incredible contributions to study generative models, to think about machine learning for creativity, and to think about the human AI collaboration that is possible now and in the future. So without further ado, please help me to welcome Dr. Philippe Pasquier.
Thanks a lot, Catherine. Thanks for the kind words and the introduction. And I won't reiterate them, but I want to join Vincent in all of the thanks that he gave, because I got the exact same list of people to thank. So yes, this is the last day of this 1 month long residency. I myself, I'm the director of a research lab. Again, musicians can't stop working, I guess, on their music. So I direct this research creation lab, and I'll say a few words about it. What we're focusing on in my research is creative AI. So this idea of applying AI, and in particular generative systems, to creative tasks. And at the moment I'm talking right now, there's actually no creative tasks that I know of that are computer mediated, for which there's no human competitive AI. In my lab, we do both scientific research, we publish algorithms, we evaluate them formally. We work with the industry, and you'll see examples of that in a few seconds, to apply those algorithms in the creative software industry and put them in the hands of artists, beginners or professional. And then we work with artists, we work ourselves as artists with our systems, but we work with artists, we collaborate with artists. And this residence here is really a great opportunity for us as a lab to host professional artists, people who make a living out of their craft, and get them some of the prototype, some of the tools that we work with the industry on in their hands. And that allows two things, this residence, that allows us to get a lot of feedback and what we call participatory design, get to design the tools and the next generation of tools by involving all of the stakeholders, and the artists are definitely possibly some of the most concerned stakeholders. And so the residency is really the opportunity to do that. The second thing it allows us to do is to just talk to you, to disseminate, to educate. That's also what we want to do, and to trigger eventually some conversations around those tools and their deployment. The computerization of society has been pretty systematic, quite brutal, and not very democratic. You never voted to work on a computer 8 hours a day. The arrival of AI is going to be as violent and pervasive, and so having those conversations before it's completely there already is a good idea. And so I'm glad to be here today. So in the lab we looked at creative tasks across domains, generative visuals, generative choreography, generative video games, you name it. But today I'll focus just on giving you a few examples as a context for the residency of what we gave to our artists when they arrived here in Vancouver, and what tools did they have to play with. And then I will give you a better idea when they present their work about what exactly is it that they did. So we've been focusing on computer-assisted composition and music AI tools in this residency. One of the main model that we have, so here I go back to the scientific model, is basically a transformer. So the same thing as ChatGPT, but for music. It doesn't generate audio, it doesn't make sound, it generates scores in a notation that is called MIDI. It doesn't really matter, but that's the name of that representation. So you give it music as a prompt, and it will generate music that works with that prompt for you. It knows all of the music. It's been listening more music than any human can. It knows every style of music, the ones you know, the ones you don't. And it's really, really competent. It's trained on the largest data set of music that is also used by my lab at the moment. And here an example of the system, an early version of the system at works. You can resample tracks, like here we're going to make a new guitar track. Then we're going to ask the system to change the drum and the bass. And here we're going to take another track, and we're just going to make a remix of it. We're going to change all of the bars, 2 by 2. So So we're going to do something that is different, copyright-free, yet is in the style of that track. So that's a variation here, which I like better than the original personally. And so that's really this idea of computer-assisted creativity. You interact with the system, you make a request like you do with ChatGPT. So with that system, you can add tracks, so you start with your own material, and add tracks. You can modify existing material, whether it's your own or someone else. You can also generate from scratch, but usually you wouldn't, because you're going to end up with medieval classical music, or it's unlikely you're going to end up with the music you want. But by going back and forth with a system like that, you might not be able to compose the music that comes out, but because you know what you like, you sort of become a curator. And so the promise of those generative systems that are going to be integrated into every creative software you can think of is that it's going to make professional work faster and allow them to explore a lot more in terms of diversity. And we already have results, scientific results, showing that they do use it as an inspiration machine. We'll hear about our artist later. And then it's going to eventually lower the barrier of entry for beginners. A lot of people buy music software. They want to be a musician. They want to be a composer. They buy a synthesizer. They will never finish a track. So this model is really strong and powerful, and because it is, a superhuman composition assistant, if you wish, and you can control it in very many ways, ask for the length of the notes, condition on a certain style, you can do all sorts of things with it. So the industry, that's how, as a professor, your work is interesting, is when the industry is knocking at the door and wants to give you money to apply it. So for example, we deploy it in the context of composition tools for video games, where video game composers are faced with challenges such as generating hundreds of hours of music for millions of players who play dozens of hours per week. And they have to do a lot of variations of their material. They write a theme, and then there's a theme that is a bit more dark and sad when the player is losing, the version that is more heroic and happy when the player is winning, etc., etc. And so it's been integrated into those type of tools. It's been integrated into synthesizers as a pattern generation engine, again, to help beginners and professionals alike. And we've been working with it and releasing albums ourselves, and we've been releasing tools for artists. So the two main, some of the main digital audio workstation, one of the one with the most number of users is Ableton Live. It has 6 million users, and so we have a plugin in Ableton, and we've been developing, so we gave that to our artists here, who both know Ableton, and we've also been developing our own interface, online interface, and you can use, therefore, and try the system for yourself if you wish. I'll play a little video examples here of our online interface, in which a variation of a piece from Mozart, which is copyright free to start with because it's old enough, is being made, and then some things that Mozart would never do are being made to it, you'll see. So that's actual Mozart. We make a variation. The system is good enough that if we test to see if humans can make the difference between actual Mozart and variations, humans can't. It's called a discrimination test, and we pass it routinely. We just added a guitar. All right. And then you can, when you generate with the system takes into account one instrument you try to generate. If I add a bass, it will know the range of the bass, and then I can control all sorts of things, the density, notes, the length of the notes, and plenty of other musical characteristics. So we gave that to artists, and the last tool I'll mention here that we gave them is in another software called Cubase by Steinberg, which is another German company. We've been collaborating with them, and we've been introducing our algorithm again in that tool. So often what we try to do is to augment existing interfaces that already have a user base with those generative possibilities. Some other companies and startups develop them on their own, but that's what we do here with Steinberg. And we did some formal studies, but here again we're going to hear some first-person account on using this type of tools. And finally, this is all big data. This is big data, big model, big transformer, trained on Compute Canada, like all the researchers from UBC at SFU, we have access to that too. But we also are interested in types of tools that are based more on small data. And Quentin, in one of his work presentation on Saturday, was using a visual synthesizer called Autolume, which is the reverse of the big data. A lot of artists, they don't want to upload their data on the cloud to start with. They don't want to use a system trained on everyone else's work, often scrapped from the internet. Under fair use, I can do that, but companies and artists are not allowed to do that in principle. So we developed other types of tools that work on your computer that allows artists to train their own model. We call that model crafting. So an artist can train their own model and then navigate with direct access to all the parameters with a graphical interface, so without coding. Most photographers, painters out there, they're not computer scientists, and there's a disconnect there. And so we're onboarding a lot of artists like that that really like to do direct manipulation. Some VJ use it, because then you can control it with music and other things. It's really a neural visual synthesizer called Autolume. And we have an exhibition about it at the moment. That's the end of my pitch here, at the Provocation Festival on South Spring. And so if you happen to go to South Spring tomorrow, it is still on in South Spring. I'll be talking about all that, model crafting, small data, and all our good work at MUTEC. It's the 25th anniversary of the festival this year in Montreal, possibly the best, the most interesting electronic arts festival in Canada, the largest certainly. I'll also be at Ars Electronica in Linz just after that to again present that, and we'll have an exhibition there. For those who want to know more about AI music, I run a conference called the AI Music Creativity Conference. It's at Oxford University in the UK, just after Ars Electronica this year. And then we'll be throwing some workshops about Autolume in town as well, possibly later in the fall. And so if you're interested in trying firsthand those tools, debating their use, you're welcome. I want to thank the funding bodies that support us. And with that, I'll give it back to Catherine.
Merci, Philippe. Our next presenter is an electronic musician, DJ, self-taught sound artist. Phil Trombe began exploring modular synthesis in the 90s with the music group Robonome. Since then, he's become an essential figure in the field of electronic and experimental music. He's a co-director of Blockhouse NY Studio 10, and he's behind a number of projects such as Rocade, WDO, and Trombe. In this session, he's going to present the results of his work with MMM from the Meta Creation Lab for Creative AI, and he's going to showcase a few pieces of music that was composed with a little help from MMM Artificial Intelligence. Phil, to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does it work? Okay, nice. Which one?
Whatever you like. You can juggle if you wish.
Okay. This one. Okay. So, thank you to UBC for this invitation. Sorry, I'm not so efficient as an AI, but I need also a prompt to. Okay, hello. So I'm Phil Trombe from the Blockhouse DY10. Okay, I have always been interested in automatic music composition method, and I extensively worked on the self-generative music system, particularly with modular synthesizers within the musical research group Robonum. It's like Robo and Bonum, like Robot Man. has been a way to leverage my experiences and knowledge in electronic music. During my residency in Vancouver, I produced between 8 and 9 tracks, which I have published on my Bandcamp. So it's philtrumble.bandcamp.com for the address, if you want to listen to me. These compositions are the result of an in-depth exploration of artificial intelligence capabilities in music, specifically using the AI for Cubase, developed by Meta Creation Lab for Creative AI. Philippe Pasquier and his team are dedicated to researching machine autonomy in artistic applications, which greatly enriched my creative approach. So I will give you a demonstration of a MMM in Cubase. We have okay, it's work. Okay, it's working. So I have this window, and okay, for explanation. Okay, I can choose in there. I can choose a lot of different styles or genders, like I don't know, R&B, contemporary rock, breakbeat. I will choose pop for the example, and you can choose after that percussion if you want something like rhythm, monophonic if you want maybe like a bass or a saxophone, and polyphonic if you want a piano or synthesizer, anything. And you have advanced parameters. It's a duality, and the duality can be like 16th or 18th or whole, everything. You have density. You can choose the density of the pattern you will process. So the density can be high or low, or in the middle, or auto. So you can choose that. And the repetition, if you want more repetition or less repetition. And craziness is like if you want something complex or not complex. If I choose 1, it's not complex, and if I choose 5, it's more complex. And I can replace all the selection, because if I use a pattern, I can replace every note, but I can add some notes in the pattern. So we will try some. Okay, I have composed, not really, a rhythm already, and bass. The bass is well known because this is the bass of Work on the White Side from Lou Reed. So, but it's very simple. You will recognize. If I mute, so there is only 3 notes. Okay. So I can create a new pattern for lead. It's important to have the good name for every track you do, because bass will, if I have bass on name, it will compose the bass. If I have I don't know, organ, it will compose something like more polyphonic, more like an organ. So it chooses the scale of what you choose as an instrument, because it's different to play saxophone or bass. Okay, let's try. So I will choose 16 notes and maybe less durity, and yeah, middle, repetition, craziness in the middle, and I generate. So it generates something. This is very simple because we only have one note. I can try another. It's a little bit high, but it always follows the bass. So now I can change the bass. Okay, it was because I choose percussion. Okay, I choose monophonic. I generate. It's better. I can change the bass now. I don't like this one. And you can listen that the bass and the lead are are working together. So this is the bass follow always the lead, and the lead follows the bass. Okay, I can try an organ for polyphonic pattern like this. Then I choose polyphonic and something less with some less durity and maybe less density and less duration, less repetition and more craziness. Okay, like this. Okay, let's try. Another one. Can make it solo like this. Listen. Yes, can try something different. Okay. And then we can try to build a song. Stuck. Like. Okay. Let's try it. Okay, let's try. Up. Come on. Come on. Yeah. All right. Like this. And don't try up. Like this. Let's change the last pattern. To do break. And then you can change everything like this, quite in live, to make some variation for the bass there. So this is very easy for me to make a song quickly. So this is not the best example I can make listen to you, but I have some other result like this one, and in this one you can listen every generated pattern, because I always I composed every pattern with MMM. This is a strange pattern, but it works with the other patterns. So the melody were real as before, going well with the bass, and then everything make something comprehensive. Okay, I did with another AI called Suno to have voice, because I had some problem to add voice, because with MIDI you can't compose any voices. So I composed this one. It's more
Yo, welcome to 2024, where beats meet the code. I'm diving deep, crafting tunes in the tech mode.
Yo, stumble in the house from block house to I stand LA lower Allen T, which means begin. Welcome to the future, where beats meet the code. I'm crafting the sounds on this cutting edge road. In the year 2020, moving through a style like white. I'm an artist at SFU, lighting up the night.
Okay, the text was also generated by ChatGPT. So this is all, the whole song is AI song. Okay, the lyrics, everything. Okay, so okay, so I composed something like 8 tracks. And you can listen to all these tracks on my Bandcamp, like I said just before. You can, the address is philtremble.bandcamp.com, Philtremble, PHELTREMBLE, Bandcamp. Okay, thank you for all. I would like to thank the UBC for sure, SFU, the Meta Creation Lab, Philippe Pasquier and his team for their support, and the French Consulate in Vancouver for their invitation. I also want to express my gratitude to Vancouver and its residents for their warm welcome. See you soon, I hope.
Yeah. Yes, may you come and experiment again soon. That's good. Thank you so much. Okay, so our final presenter this morning is Quentin Nolot. He is our final speaker, and he is going to tantalize you with his artist designer sensibilities. He's based both in Paris and in Berlin. He discovered his style in blending music with hardware and software, and he creates unique renders, particularly for installations and performances in sound design and composition. I trust that you will all go down the rabbit hole of these artists once you've had your appetites whetted, because the work is phenomenal. The work continually redefines and questions our relationship with the digital sphere, notably by eliminating standard interfaces, gathering databases, and thinking about human movements and activities, and using a source of control and modulation. So how do those intersections make meaning and create things? This approach democratizes the use of certain software by providing tools that simplify user interactions. His most recent work is on a tool that generates MIDI signals and music from users' physical movements. For this presentation, Quentin's going to share his thoughts about how he generated AI within his workflow and how he uses it in his artistic practice. So what a topper to our incredible panel this morning. Quentin, over to you.
So thanks a lot. You already said a lot about my practice. And here you can see my dear machine that I really missed a lot. And I will shortly introduce myself. So I did typeface design bachelor degree and a master design of digital creation. So here on the right side is more interactive installation. This one I made it for the Bombay Beach Biennale of 2024. And on the left, it's more my work with calligraphy and typeface design, how to build a font of my writing, for example. So lately, I've been working with these sensors to catch movements and data out of a dancer, for example. So I won't go deep into details, but it works with accelerometers and gyrometers. So it catches the rotation speed, how you can orient your arm, how fast you will move. And I've built it from the nunchuck Wii controller, from those who play to Wii video games. So I use this one rather than buying new sensors and consume a lot of resources, like new resources. I prefer to work with existing resources. So this is why I worked with these nunchucks, and they are pretty cheap, in fact. So here, this is one of my friends playing with the sensors. So as you can see on the right, there's all the data that I'm catching from the sensors. There's a small interface with it, and there's the oscilloscope at the right on the bottom. So here, all the movement and the speed are generating music. So my relation with AI was mostly to learn Python, for example, to work in a collaborative way with these tools, because I don't get coding skills. So it was more in this way of learning something from the AI. And I also used Suno that Philippe told you about a bit earlier, more in a sound design context. So for me, it was a bit of challenging to include AI that is not super efficient for real-time performances in my own work. So I had to make a choice and to rethink my workflow. So here, this is all the data that you catch from the sensors. So there's the different buttons, there's temperature, there's the x-axis, the y, z, and all and everything. So my workflow is basically having the sensor, so the hardware part of it, then coming to Touch Designer, that is a software for interactive design, to smooth the data, to treat it and make it understandable for every machine or software, and then sending it to Ableton to control and generate music. So here, since I've started this project, I got different archives and videos with the visual aspect, so the person that is dancing, the data, and then also the audio aspect of it. And it allows me to work performances after they were performed, and was super interesting for me to work this medium in a time after the act of performing. So here, this is where Calliope came into my workflow. So here we can see that is the musical score generated by the data of my friend from Berlin, Julia, that is a super exceptional dancer. So I will make you listen to the musical partition that was made with it. So as you can hear, it doesn't really follow the musical notion that I discovered within music that made music music. Like there is the first one is harmonic, how melodies your event will be, how will be the pitch of your notes. The second one is rhythm, how your events are placed through a timeline. And the third one and the last one is randomness, how chaotic your events are placed to others, Do they follow a constant timeline, or are they more having this chaotic feeling, for example? So here, these data are not generated by a human playing on the piano or in a standard way, kind of. It's by movement, so it's not linked with all of these musical notions. And what I discovered by using Calliope, so Calliope is a tool to generate variations out of musical partition. So I gave to Calliope this musical partition that I've made with sensors. And this tool is not made for that primarily, like it's made for music, but not for data issues of movement and people dancing and everything. But if we see here, so here this is the first variation I've made out of it. The second one. So as you can hear, sometimes there's some weird events that happens, and Calliope always try to re-inject the three musical notions that I told you about earlier, notably by I did this layering to do a proper comparison of my original data in red and the purple for a Calliope version. So Calliope tried to create some key moments, to add some chords, to restructure everything, and also it extends the ranges of notes of the partition itself. So this is quite interesting to see how a musical partition, like non-musical partition, can be transformed by AI and being into this sort of in-between musical and non-musical data. So I used it for composition, but then I will show you the other variation. So here we can see that there's some sort of a common points with my original data and the variation made out of Calliope. So we can see that some moment or some of key moments, there's sometimes this space that Calliope will create to, I cannot really explain why, but Calliope really likes to add spaces, to make chords, and to structure it with the super linear blocks compared to my first data. So here, this is the third variation, and the last one with a lot of colors. So we can see that even within the different variations, there are always some key points that Calliope really insists on. And it was really interesting for me to work with these data out of performances, but in the time after the performance, and remix it and use it as a source of modulation / music and everything. So I will make you listen a short extract of a track that I've made with it. So here, this is just an example of me playing with this sensor. So I did calligraphy, and I used this sensor to put it on my pen and play with it. So here we can see that there's different data. I just put this extract to see that I can work with everything that is dynamic, like calligraphy, but it can be, I don't know, someone doing sports or whatever. Like, I'm not stick to working with dancers. And this is why this tool is from my opinion, exceptional in the way that I can work with every disciplines, every type of people. It's pretty experimental, you will see. By the way, this is just me playing with the sensor in one of the rooms of Surrey. I was alone to do the photo shoot, so this is why there's a lot of blurry effect. But finally, I liked it a lot, so I just kept it. as you can hear, there are some moments to which it sounds pleasant because there's chords, melodies, but some other moments are a bit random, like there is no real rhythm behind it, except the fact that I applied some delay to make it sound in rhythm. But in fact, if we look into the data, nothing is really aligned because, as I said, it's extracted from this weird data that I generated with Calliope, not from a standard musician playing a keyboard or something. So there's different movement and variation, and it offers me a super nice way to work with these data and having this in between musical / non-musical type of music. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to discover this tool to improve my practice and keep working with my sensor, but in different way, and discover potential in people, movement, life in general. And yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Catherine.
So I'd love to invite questions from the audience. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, whether you're in the room with us today, we have about half an hour to take questions and tap into the minds of these incredible creatives. I'd like to begin, though, by just showing our audio appreciation for this amazing work that we've been treated to. Oh, you love it. What comes first, the technology or the concept?
From my side, it's more the concept of working with movement, and then ask about how can I realize the concept with technologies. And I had this purpose of unlink myself and people from interfaces. So I did research, found these sensors, way to connect it with my computer without touching it. And then I made Calliope and keep working on this purpose, but it's firstly the concept that comes and then the technology goes with it. I mean, from my opinion.
For me, it was, I don't know really, because maybe it was technology, because I tried to make, to build songs with the computer, but maybe it was the concept, because before I wanted to make something like an LP, like between 8 and 10 songs. I don't know really. Maybe it was the concept before, I don't know, but...
Yeah, well, I don't know if the tool, the technology or the concept comes first, but what's interesting when I listen to the 9 tracks that Phil generated in the last months, and we did plenty, and 9 tracks in a month is a lot. But I can't tell it's AI composed, and I know his work, which probably people in the room don't, and it sounds like his usual work. And so I have questions about that later, but when it comes to the concept and the work, that's exactly what this residence is sort of valuable for us, is by putting the tools, I believe in anthropocentric instrumentalism, the idea that AI is just another set of tools. And you design the tool as a scientist, as a designer, and then the practice, and it's relevant to talk about it here because this is a community of practice. The practitioners will appropriate the tool, and then all of a sudden, this is not the tool I was planning to develop. This is not the tool I designed. They find a new workflow, find new use for the tool, use cases I didn't even think about, like this idea of musicifying, movement data. Never ever we thought about that before Quanten did it. And so, yeah, whatever the technology is, if it becomes instrumental to the practice, then always the concept, or at least the practice, will prevail. Is what we hope, as those automation techniques and generative tools invade our world.
I think sometimes we forget when we use the language of generative tools, that's actually what we mean. It's generating new ideas, new concepts, new flow, new everything. I'm struck by something you said, Quentin, about there's not really a rhythm, but there's just these sounds. I'm wondering whether, because of the way that our brains as humans are organized, we seek rhythm, no matter what kind of chaos we're listening to. And so we're trying to organize it in our own minds, where the technology is pushing us to let it be what it becomes.
So for rhythm and technology, for me, there's like this thing in which our brains are super used to have this sort of a musical rhythm, but what if we try to unlink ourselves from this standard rhythm, like whatever mainstream music, and maybe reconsider rhythm for whatever other living being, for example, like what would be the rhythm of a tree or a snail or whatever, like having this disconnection with this music that is super based on our taste and not inspired by our environments. And for this practice, it was kind of, trying to find other way of creating rhythm, other way of creating harmonies and melodies based on maybe just movement, on calligraphy, or whatever other practice than just make people dance or having fun or buying an albums or whatever other things linked with the musical industry. So, yeah.
It's interesting, you're doing that with physical movement, and then Phil, you're doing it with the craziness button, sort of playing around with dynamism and trying to knit that into whatever you create.
I don't know what to say. Je sais pas. I don't have an answer.
You don't have to. You don't have to comment. And by the way, this is not just a panel of practitioners. It's also a seriously good panel of French accents. Like this is the full spectrum of the potential today for you all. This idea of rhythm, and that's probably why it sort of works. So the machine. So Quentin is generating those data with the movement and then passing on that data to a machine who is trying to make musical sense out of it and adding notes to it. But the truth is, in movement, there is already musical rhythm, because music, BPM is around the BPM of the art, the number of beats per minute, and everything in music has to do with the fact that you can dance on it, you can move on it. And so it's emerging from the human body. And that's interesting because in our scientific studies, we do show, and we tried, of course, to get machines to develop their own aesthetic, to develop new types of... We just killed the battery. Not just imitating humans, which is what current machines do. ChatGPT meant imitate humans' language. So those are just pastiche machines. We tried in research to have machines being actually creative and leave them on their own, creating new music. And they do so, but because it moves away from the body, the movement, and the organic rhythm of our body, then very quickly it develops music that has no interest for human. And when we make experiments, then nobody likes it, which is probably a really good news for composers and artists. But this embodied grounding into our body in all of our practices, since we talk about communities of practice today, is real, and there's no moving away from it. And that's one of the things to keep in mind when you get a little afraid of machines taking over or their autonomy menacing us. This is not going to happen as long as our body is around.
Still needs some intervention. Okay, we've got some questions coming on, and once again, those of you in the room, just give me an indication, and I'll come to you in just a couple of seconds. Okay, this one from Sasha, DJ Sasha Cambridge. What data is MMM trained on? Presumably non-copyrighted music. To which extent does that frame the style of what MMM can achieve? Great question, thank you.
Yeah, so it's trained on a data set that is available for research purposes called GigaMIDI. And so it's trained on copyrighted music and non-copyrighted music. It's trained on everything we could find, really. And that's the way things are trained nowadays, which make me point at an important loophole that people really need to understand, because there's so many lawsuits and issues right now with that. So as a researcher, and every researcher in America through fair dealing and fair use can do that, I can scrap the net for data anything that is online for free. I can't go behind a paywall, that would be illegal, but I can scratch the net and train models. Then I train a model. I remove the data, there's no data in the model, and the model we show it doesn't regenerate the data. It does always generate something new and original. So I can sell the model to a company. This is why Google, Meta, all the models you have access to, that's how they're trained. And that's why those companies work with universities. Because if you work with the computer science lab at UBC, you can get those model trained on Compute Canada under fair use, and then the model doesn't have the data. A lot of artists are like, well, the model doesn't have the data, but it's been sucking my data and learning on it, so I disagree. And that's why there's a lot of lawsuits against those companies. And so I hope that answers the question. So yes, it's trained on both non-copyrighted, like domain-free data that is usually like classical music that is falling out of copyright because of time, but it's also trained on copyrighted material as well. And this is one of the reasons we work in a research creation setting with artists, because the companies, some of them that have implemented our model are actually waiting for those lawsuits to finish to see what the situation is in Europe, where now you have to show the data you train the model on, whether they can actually commercialize or not. There's a lot of debate, and many companies, except the big ones that have the lawyers to fight back, are in that exact position right now. Everyone is like, oh, wait a second, we're using copyrighted material. You know, ChatGPT is trained on all of the books. All of the books.
But these laboratory spaces allow you to protect that somewhat.
Yeah, for research it's cool, yeah.
Okay, there's a question in the room, so I'll get you to speak it out loud, and then I'm going to speak it back so that the microphones can pick it up.
So I wanted to ask, one of my biggest concerns with AI is that the data it's being fed is more Western-based, and like for example, for face recognition softwares, it cannot recognize people of color because it has been more trained on white faces. Coming to the music part, is the data more Western music based? Because in the Eastern music, like I'm Turkish, and in Turkish music we have microtonal sounds, and does the data have any of those varieties, or else would it just create more bland and repetitive music?
So I'll try to summarize the question. It's so much of the data that's been collected is based on a Western voice, a Western perception of a Western model of thinking, and you're asking about music and whether or not there's a broader representation so that it's not just that dominant Western kind of voice in the music.
Yes, yeah, the short answer is no, it's biased. It's definitely biased towards Western music. It's also biased towards music that can be notated. A lot of musical traditions don't abide by the Western style notation. In fact, the way they divide harmonies and stuff doesn't even match the way we do it, you know, Indian, microtonals and all that. So it is biased, and it's important to have that in mind. And that's also why we now try to push those small data model crafting approaches by which a Persian musician can be, look, this is the tracks that I'm interested in, this is the type of music I'm dealing with. So I work with Kenyan artists right now doing exactly that, actually, to empower them to train their own model that, by definition, won't have those biases. And this is true as well in the visual domain. In France, we had this author called Edouard Said in the 70s, who was showing that in the paintings of the Middle East from the 19th century, the Arabic calligraphy was faked. They were not Arabic characters. They look fantastic, but they were faked because the audience was the nobles and the rich people from Europe who don't really care. And also because those painters were not calligraphs properly trained. Well, if you ask an online model right now, you can do it with Midjourney or Stable Diffusion to do you Arabic calligraphy, it will fake it too. It has this bias which is called Orientalism. So that's one example, but we actually can study those biases systematically, and I'll finish with this somewhat long answer to say that yes, AI is biased, but AI is our best chance to address bias, because now we're all interested in eliminating it, meaning and because those are computers and not humans, the explicit and implicit bias are easy to measure and potentially really easy to fix. And so AI brings the problem of the bias to the forefront, and I vow here that AI will be the domain that will solve the bias problem for us.
Okay, so some expansive thinking required. I'll come to you in just one moment. One more question from the floor here. Spencer Blakelock says, how can you break what seems like a rigid tool to start to get more interesting results? Is it mostly a matter of feeding it unexpected data, as the last presenter does?
So firstly, the music, the first render I made out of the data in Calliope was kind of having helicopter sounds and everything because it's super chaotic data. So for me, it started to get interesting when you link this musical partition with interesting sound design and synthesizer, virtual instrument, to make it pleasant to hear. Because firstly, I really had this Yanis Xenakis rendering. It was hyper fast and having a lot of chaos in it. So for me, it started to really get interesting when you put your own style in it with the themes and everything. Like, for example, we both use the same tool with Philips, but having different result and render because we are both musicians having our own style. And for me, this is the moment, like, every tool, when you start to really make it your and having a really nice understanding of it, you can start to really play with it, feel familiar with it, having your own shortcut and habits, and start to create your own music rather than doing, I don't know, a standard mainstream flow of music that makes no sense even for you. So, yeah.
Phil, thoughts on that one?
Okay. We're good. No, I'm fine too. I'm fine too. But this is a really good question, and indeed, this is what we observe: is that the appropriation is always different, and so far, artists don't seem to lose their style because that's one of the fear. You know, if everyone uses the same AI, does it mean like it's all going to become all gray? But no, we're keeping a lot of colors.
Right. This is a question from Patrick Pennefather, texting away here, warning that he doesn't want me to let him get annoying with his ideas, but he's just like got a popcorn popper of a brain. So I'm going to give you this one. Phil is using and automating MIDI to trigger loops and specific synthesized sounds. Why those sounds? Anyone exploring more ambient composition with AI without rhythms? Like, how are you sort of thinking that through?
I don't really know. When it was good, it was good, so I take it. I take it. So simple as that. But in a certain way, I use always mini Moog sounds in the VST for sure, but mini Moog sound for bass because this is usual for making technos. So that's why, and for the rhythm, it was like I tried some different presets, and then when it was good, it was good. So, and for the rest, I used a lot. I don't know the name. I can't remember the name, but it was. I tried. Just a minute.
Lots of plugins?
Yes, a plugin from Reactor called Razor. I remember now. Razor, because I didn't really know which kind of sound it could make, so it was like a test, and it was always nice. So I keep.
And then the question here alludes to this interaction between the composition and the interpretation, right? And when I hear those songs, I recognize Phil's style. And so I think what's happening here in the background is he has all these instruments and, you know, synthesizers that he likes to use. And then when you generate with that machine, you keep your own instrumentation, you decide on an instrumentation, you keep an instrumentation, and you generate those patterns. And in fact, it's going to be this case of you becoming a curator and being like, yes, this pattern works well with that sound, right? And maybe the other pattern is actually really great, but it would work with another sound and not with that sound. So there is this interaction between the composition and the interpretation. And I'll take that opportunity to say that this particular version of the model generates music but doesn't play it. So it doesn't have the velocity or the micro timing that a human musician would if you would give it that score. And that's why it works very well for electronic music, because there is this machinic aspect in the interpretation. But in laboratory, we show that in the world, we give a lot of credit to composers, but it turns out like for chess, for a lot of cognitive tasks like that are symbolic, I can make a machine that is a better composer than you. What the magic of music is usually not in the composition, it's in the interpretation. I can sing to you a Beatles song, it's going to be awful. You know, even though the composition is fantastic. And we all know great musicians that you can give them a poor composition and they would make fantastic interpretations out of it. And so in a way, some of our research on music AI is showing where is the talent and the real preciousness of the human in that musical adventure. And it's not so much as much in the composition as we sometimes credit composers for. Yeah.
Okay.
Just something. The results of the generated patterns were like more complex, like mine. So, yes, for sure. And I choose every pattern because I like it at this moment, and because it was weird. Sometimes because it was weird for me. Right. Sometimes it's not starting at the first time of the pattern. So sometimes it was like strange for me, but I used it because it was strange.
Right. It was interesting then. Then you go exploring.
Yes.
Okay. There's a question in the room. So again, I'll repeat the question back, please.
Being made available, we would run the risk of running it through the training of the next MMM model, like as an input. How do we prevent that from happening, and what are the implications, and how do we curate what's AI and what's human-generated content?
Right.
That makes sense.
I think so. So you're saying, how do we make sure as we have generations of new data that we're not just building on the data that was in generation 1, that we're open to creating a whole new set as we go forward? And what would the implications of that be for artists like yourselves?
Yeah, maybe I can give it a crack. That's a really good question. I mean, we are entering the world of fake media. And it's very clear that there's going to be way more data generated by AI than by humans. That switch is going to happen in the next 3 years. And the worst part of it is we do know how to tell apart human generated content from AI generated content. Less and less so, actually. And we show in laboratories that for a lot of models, you just can't. So this is called the discrimination test, and we pass them routinely. And you know all the implications for fake news and all that. So we need to find a way to label content, because that's the only way to go about it. You know, I know my meat is organic because there's a label on it that says so, and I trust that label. Right now, you can't tell if a post is from a professional journalist that is trained with ethics, you know, a layman person, and everyone can have an opinion, or if it's from a bot. You know, there's 11 million bots on Twitter, etc., etc. So that's a real problem. And you're right that because we siphon that data to train model, more and more those models are going to train on a mix of human content and also machine-made content. Now, this machine-made content has statistical distribution. I don't want to get technical. That are so similar to human-made content because, again, those machines are pastis machine, and what they generate can't be told apart from what humans do. But it sort of amplifies all the biases in the data because more of the stuff that are more present are going to be generated, and et cetera, et cetera. So we're in a tough situation, and we need legislators to step up, and we know how fast and competent legislators are to step up, so we're very hopeful, I guess.
Yeah, this is a recruiting day, just in case you guys didn't get the memo. We want everybody's ideas flowing. Note here from Alexandra Sechevich. Did you explore the connection, I think this is for you, Quentin, between biofeedback and AI learning?
Biofeedback?
Mm-hmm.
For the moment, not really, because as I said, the tools are not really great for real-time generation. So for the moment, it was more in the composition aspect, and I always try to reach the limits of a tool to see how far can I go and how can I break it, and then understand the rules and being like, okay, this is good to do that, really not good to do this part. And in this way, having my own way of using the machines. And also, I'm not good at music itself, like I don't know how to play any instrument. I'm doing music with numbers and algorithm. So yeah, this is pretty interesting in this way. So this is why I try to do music with numbers then.
Right. Okay, I'm going to go to Alex's follow-up question, which is this. On a similar note, regarding the link between visual and audio generation, have you tried to feed data of images created by Yevgeny Merzin in the ANS synthesizer? Any of you?
Yeah, can you repeat I didn't get the
Yeah.
last part of the question, the data.
The link between visual and audio generation, have you tried to feed data of images created by Yevgeny Merzin, M-U-R-Z-I-N, ANS synthesizer?
No.
Getting very specific,
Yeah,
Alexandra.
no, we didn't, but because it's an open source project that is available online, and we give workshops around it, that person could contact me, and we would be happy to train a model
There you go.
together. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Please. I'm going to come and stand beside you because I can hear that you're going to preamble. So I'm just going to stand beside you. Yeah, I'm going to stand right beside you and you can speak and they can hear you.
All right, so I'm pretty sure I'm pulling the Tyler Creator's method for creating his music. But when he makes his music, he said that he doesn't make it like thinking from point A to point B, but instead he rather focuses on creating moments in his music. And so, for example, your model that you use for generating like these parts of the music, because is trained from like past data sets of music, I'm just curious whether or not you would actually you would think that your model will be able to generate moments that make your music memorable, or whether or not your tool would only really be used to like be used as like an ancillary tool for producing music.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah, definitely. So for my side, I'm doing more performances than composition, and if you ask to me to do a performance 10 times, it won't be the same every time because there's so many parameters that comes in, like how you feel the place, how you feel the audience, your physical condition, mental conditions. So every time there's happy accidents that for me AI is not able to replicate, or it sounds a bit fake or a bit non-natural kind of. And for example, if sometimes there's so many things that are so precious in a performance that AI cannot really replicate. It can be to so many different levels. And for me, yeah, there's this thing that performers are for the moment a bit aware of being catched by AIs, depending on their way of performing, of course. But when you do improvisations, there's so many parameters that an AI cannot just take in consideration, because you will need a body and a soul and a background and all this kind of thing that made people and artists who they are to just practice. So for me as a performer, I'm kind of away from this aspect.
Yeah, and just to add to that and to give a slightly more maybe generic answer, yeah, so the practice in those systems that are computer-assisted creativity, they're really tools, and the human in the loop is really important. You know, we did try systems with no human in the loop, and as I said really quickly, it does very, very new things, very original, but things that are not interesting for human to listen to. So this curatorial aspect, the choosing the right moment, making that moment happen, with or without AI, this is work. And some people are talented at it, some people aren't. And that's just how you end up being an artist, I guess, is because you're talented at it. So I wouldn't feel, I don't know if you feel threatened by those tools, and you feel that we might lose those opportunities for creative to get those moments, but I don't think so. I would even go a step further, saying that we live in a world where computers are everywhere. Being a creative in Vancouver, for most people, means sitting 8 hours a day in front of a computer, clicking on buttons, often the same button in the same order, every day. And when you've been clicking for 3,000 times in a project, it's linear. You can undo, but you're not going to undo 2,000 clicks to take a completely different direction, right? Nobody does that. With AI, you can really draft things. You can like very quickly get, content and then explore diversity, way more. And it allows as well to get sometimes some creatives that get into a pattern, a repetitive pattern. Dancers have that problem with, getting the movement style and getting locked into it. Same with musicians. Then those AIs, which we not couldn't unpublished studies, but we're trying to show that they help people to actually do a bit more diversion seeking in a way and get more creative, therefore, even for professionals. Yeah.
For me, I used AI like a discussion with someone, but it's not someone. It gave me a result, so it let me think something, and I choose what is good or not, and then I ask a question to the AI, and then I have the answer, and etc. And I create with that, with the answers from the AI. So it's like a discussion.
This panel has been such a beautiful reminder of how much craft and creativity can be involved and included when we're talking about AI. Sometimes people sort of get that technologist brain and think that it's dehumanizing. In fact, you have all done such a brilliant job of humanizing this process and including us into your thinking. One thing that each of you are thinking about for next steps before we break from this audience. One thing, Phil, that you're thinking that you're going to play with next.
I don't really know. I will make more songs. You have a show in 48 hours in France. In 48 hours? I think I will use these songs to make a live with it and then to play it in France, but for sure. But I will make some AI meeting like Chris Craig did do in Vancouver in my blockhouse DY10. So it's a very good place. And I think I would try to have more interest from people in France for artificial intelligence, because it's very difficult to have a good, I don't know to say that, good interaction with people on AI, because people don't really know what we can do with that.
Thank you. Quentin, what about you?
So there's a purpose that I kind of skipped during my presentation, but behind the sensor using, there's all this way of democratizing the production of music without having the knowledge about it. And to keep going on this purpose, I'd like to get rid of a computer and the software in it, because of course, like, I can give the sensor to whatever person that they can play with it, but in fact, we need a good laptop to run Ableton and Touch Designer at the same time. There is knowledge that you have to know about code and stuff. So I'd like to get rid of the computer and softwares to create a module that can generate music itself, to just having this plug and play aspect, like I can give the sensor to everyone and everyone can play with it without having a single idea about what's happening inside. And yeah, it will be the next step for this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and myself, I'll just conclude here by saying that, yeah, what I have in mind, and maybe because this is the community of practice here at the Emerging Lab seminars, I think what I have in mind is this idea of practice, and this how do we wave all those tools and those new ecosystems with practice. And having the chance to work with two practitioners here for a month was really a great way to raise more questions than we did find answers, and we hope we're going to get able to publish some of the findings that we did together. But that's really what I have in mind, is to keep the human and the human practice at the center of it all.
Okay. Thank you all for being with us, those of you online and those of you in the room. Thank you very much to Saeed and the team at the Emerging Media Lab, and to all of you who participate in our community of practice. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. Thank you for being with us in Vancouver. Okay, bonjour.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.